friends, and welcome back. My name is Deepa from DeeZinesByD, and I have another card to share with you featuring products from Scrappy Tails. So, the recent release from Scrappy Tails had a lot of beautiful products for masculine cards, but I really wanted to show you that you could take some of these products and use them for feminine cards. So, I've got the A7 cover die seashell frame here, and you've got the beautiful frame along with separate seashells you could use. Now I'm going to mix it with this high heel from the J'adore collection, which came out earlier this year. And I've also got the little sentiment stamps that go along with it. So let's go ahead and get started. First, what I'm going to do is create an ink blended background here. And I'm using some light blues, like the color of the ocean, like you would see at the beach. So I'm grabbing some lighter colors from, these are inks from Altenew. And I've got like a really light blue. It's kind of hard to see. I'm kind of just adding it to a panel of white cardstock, and I'm seeing where it's going to show up on that high heel die. So I've got some sea glass here that is really light. And even the names of these inks just go with the ocean and the beach theme. So the next color, it's a little bit darker, is Ocean Waves. I'm just going to blend that in. That's going to come down on the shoe. And the final color I'm using here is Dusk. It's just a deeper blue. Now you get a nice blended effect like you would at the sea. The ocean has different tones of blue. And then I just cut that out with that high heel die. Now what I'm going to do is cut out the detail portions of the shoe. So I've got the platform portion at the bottom and then the actual heel. I'm just using some gold mirror cardstock, and I'm going to cut those out using my smaller die cutting machine. Now these I'm going to put on the top after I've positioned all of the seashells that I want to go on my shoe. So as I do this, I like to kind of, as I go along, kind of place things on there. It gives me an idea of what it's finally going to look like. And that's what it'll look like, but with the seashells. So let's grab those seashells. So there's one die that actually cuts out like 4 seashells at once. And then there's 2 separate seashell dies that you could use as well. I'm going to cut all of them out using some cream or like off-white shimmer cardstock here. And you can see that they look gorgeous. They're going to work well with the shoe. Now, to add just a little bit of variation, a little bit of shadows, it will kind of highlight the details in these seashells. I'm adding some gold pigment ink. And I've just got a blending brush here. I'm just kind of brushing it onto the edges. And I find as you brush it onto the edges, it highlights all of those embossed details in those shells. And shells, again, just like the sea, they have different tones, so it creates a bit of shine, and it also, as I said, just highlights those details. So I'll just go ahead and add all this gold. There's no rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of brushing it from one side, and it gives it like a nice 3D effect. Now I'm going to cut a panel of black cardstock. So this is actually 5x7. As I mentioned, that cover die, that frame is meant for 5x7 cards. So this is going to be a little larger. And I'm going to emboss it on the panel, not cut it, but emboss it. So this means instead of putting it against a cutting plate, I'm going to put it against my rubber mat, run it through my die cutting machine, and you can see the embossing is absolutely stunning. It's pretty deep. It is pretty detailed, just like the die. And before I move on, I'm just going to cut off the little bit of the edge there that's kind of just hanging off, that's not embossed. So this, as I said, this frame is meant for a 5x7 card, but when you do cut it out, it gives you just a little bit of a border there. And that's what I'm doing by cutting that off. Now let's move on to the shoe. I've got my shells here, so I can go ahead and kind of organize them or assemble them on the shoe. And what I really want to have is the shells kind of coming up from the bottom, but not filling the entire shoe. I want to see some of that blue there to signify or represent the ocean. Now, one of those shells worked perfectly on the back of the shoe there. And then you can see I have some of the shells kind of going into the platform portion. Don't worry about that because we cut out those detailed gold mirror pieces that are going to cover up the bottom platform half and the heel part. So it's going to look like, it's just all one kind of fabric or just part of that portion of the shoe. And you can see I'm cutting off any of the overhanging bits so that it still keeps that shape of the shoe. And now I'll go ahead and add those detail bits here. You could add it with some foam if you wanted to add a little bit of dimension, but I'm just adding it like right onto the die cut there so that it covers up those shells. So now that I've got those detail pieces on, you can really see the shoe coming together. I've got some light blue. It's kind of like a muted blue shimmer cardstock from that same pack that I had cut the shells out of. I'm going to cut this sentiment label here. And this is the coordinating die. It goes with the Friends or the Friendship stamp and die set, which was also part of that J'adore collection. All of the products that I'm using today are going to be linked within the description below. Just go ahead and click that link there and have fun shopping. There's also a direct link to the Scrappy Tails store if you wanted to look for all of these products. Now, I do have like a frame stamp, which is perfect. It's really just going to make the sentiment label stand out. And I'm using my Altenew stamp wheel to stamp it down. I can kind of place that image and then just kind of turn it around to make sure that I have the proper spacing so that it's centered. I'll stamp it out with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink with some nice black. And then I'll go ahead and position the sentiment and stamp that out as well. Now, I do want to note that this shimmer cardstock, it has a really smooth surface, and I'm using VersaFine Clair ink, which has a pigmented portion. It's a pigment ink, basically. And what a pigment ink does is it sits on top of the cardstock. The more porous your cardstock or less smooth, the more it's gonna seep in. And the less porous or more smooth like this cardstock, it's going to sit on top. So you might want to heat set it with a heat gun. I had a little bit of smudging, which I was able to clear up, which I'll show you afterwards. But yeah, definitely do heat set that ink to make sure it's not going to smudge or go anywhere. Now for the panel, I looked at it and I really like those shells, and that shoe is just so glam that it's really going to stand out on that black background, which is why I chose black to begin with. But I really wanted those seashells from the frame to stand out as well. So I took a shimmer marker, which has all this beautiful shimmer, and I just filled in all of those shells on the frame. So moving forward, I'm cutting my card base here. I just basically take an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, cut it at 7 inches, score it at 5, fold it, and then cut off the excess piece. Now I'm going to attach my seashell frame black panel, and my shimmer, the shimmer that I placed down is still a little bit wet, so I'm trying not to kind of smear it too much. I'm adding some foam adhesive to that high heel, and that's just so you know this is the focal point of my card. I want it to really kind of pop and stand off of that black background. I'm going to place that down in the center of the card, leaving a little bit of space up in the top right for me to put that sentiment label. Now I added some foam and I'm attaching it, and here is where I kind of smeared the ink a little. It's a little hard to tell on camera, but there is definite smearing. So I found that using my detailer tool here, which is what I normally use for foiling, it kind of just took off that ink right off the top of the cardstock and kind of fixed it up a bit. You could use a Tombow Mono eraser, but that sand is going to remove the shimmer from that cardstock, which is why I use the detailer tool. It's a little softer. Now I've got some extra shells that I'm adding around the label. They're just really to add a bit of interest and reinforce that seashell or beach vibe that we've got going. And you can see the starfish. I've got a little bit of foam there because the label is it's propped up with some foam, so you kind of want to match that dimension. We've got that scallop shell in the background, and then this other shell, I'm just gonna add a bit of foam to that as well and prop that up in front. Okay, so we can't finish a card without adding some bling. Now I lost some footage here, I'm so sorry. I actually added these beautiful pearls and these blue gems, which were also released with the Set Sail collection, to the shoe to really just step it up a little bit, give it a bit more shine and pizzazz like a glam seashell shoe should have. So that's my inspiration for today. I hope that you guys can see that you can use the set sail collection for more feminine cards if you'd like as well. Mix it up with some of the other products in the shop. As I mentioned, everything is linked down below along with my blog post if you wanted to have a look at that. And I have a reel on Instagram, which is also linked within my blog. I hope you guys have liked this card. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you again next time. Bye.